What it do, golf fans? Welcome back to the Turn Dogs Golf Podcast. It's just me again this week. I'm just solo. We'll just skip right into it. Jack is traveling. I apologize. It is very late at night. I have been burning the candle on both ends. Needless to say, I guess is probably the best way to describe it. So I have really been all over the place. But I want to get a podcast out for you guys, obviously tonight. We're just going to quickly highlight some of the stuff from President's Cup last week. America did win, which Jack had as a winner's pick. I also had as a winner's pick. We both agreed that America was going to win. Um, it was honestly a pretty good event, all things considered. Pretty fun. The competitiveness made it very interesting. I think that was a bit of a surprise. I don't know if I anticipated that much animation maybe is the best way to describe it. There was some animated moments. We'll just say that. Obviously, after Thursday with the USA being up 5-0, it was pretty ugly looking. Obviously, the international team came back, made it 5-5, made it kind of exciting, and then the USA kind of slowly just pulled away. Ended up winning, I think, by 7 shots. So hopefully you guys had that as the winning number. I think it was like plus 375 if you guessed between 5 and 7, and that was the number. So hopefully that was all something you guys had. Just to highlight a couple things, a few guys that I was kind of all over were Taylor Pendrith and Corey Connors. They both ended up playing all 5 rounds. I think it's because they were in their home country. I think that was a really big highlight for them at the end of the day, which I totally understand why. But that's something to kind of keep in mind in there. As far as my DraftKings lineup, I actually finished top 50 in all DraftKings lineups for the President's Cup. And you might wonder why, considering I had 4 international players and they lost, but three of the 4 international players I had all played 5 rounds, and the other one played 4. And then obviously both of my American players also played 5 rounds. So 5 of my 6 total DFS options ended up playing all 5 rounds, which was huge. The only one that didn't was Tom Kim, who I think won one match, tied another match, and lost two. But had some really close matches and won one match, I think, by about 4 or 5 holes. My captain, Corey Connors, that was great. He ended up getting me, I think, 2 points. Scotty Scheffler obviously did really good this week. Same with Xander. Tom Kim, I already talked about. Adam Scott played all 5 rounds and got another 2 points. And then Taylor Pendrith at 4,200, one of the cheapest options in the entire field, ended up playing 5 rounds and won 2 points as well. So he really played extremely well, all things considered, since he was as cheap as he was last week. Just to highlight some of my bets, I had Mackenzie Hughes over Minwoo Lee at minus 105. That was a win. Minwoo Lee only played twice all week, which I didn't. I thought Mackenzie Hughes was going to play more because he was in Canada. I did not think Minwoo Lee was only going to play twice. He played, I think, Friday. No, he played Thursday and then he played Sunday. He took like 2 days off. I was like, is he injured? I won't ask questions. So that was a win. I had day one 4 ball sessions going to the USA at minus 105. That was a win. I had USA to win the tournament at minus 250. That was a win. And then I had Corey Connors as the top Canadian at plus 140. That was a wash because he ended up tying with Taylor Pendrith. I'm okay with it. So again, I went 3-0-1. And I went up 2.3 units on the week. So I'm up 1 unit on the year. Bear in mind that Jack is up 1.64 units from the Pro Core. So that means we are combined 2.34 units already up on the year, which is great. So that's always super fun. It makes things very interesting on that front. But with that, let's head to one of the most boring events in all of the golf calendar. It's the Sanderson Farms. We're going to Jackson, Mississippi here, everybody. Enjoy. Can't you see the excitement in my eyes? But it's not the most exciting event of all time. It's a pretty basic layout. It's a pretty boring golf course, all things considered. The course is wide open. You can miss the fairways and not really have any problems. Driving accuracy is like not important here at all. I mean, distance isn't even that important. Last year's winner was Luke List, who again has no accuracy and a lot of distance. Keep that in mind. But this is one of those like it's a bleeping putting contest kind of places. You know, when Rom talks about it being a putting contest, this is one of those. It's like legitimately a putting contest. So keep that in mind. It's not very exciting. There's only 5 holes that have water involved in it. A lot of holes have bunkers. Some of them have trees in play, but I mean, some of those guys are missing those fairways enough that they're going to end up in other fairways. And at that point, then it's really not a big problem. Looking at the statistical correlation, the highest factors are uh, putting, basically anywhere between 5 and 15 feet, and then approach play / wedge play between 50 and 125 yards. Those are your 2 buckets. That's really the important ones to pay attention to when you're overlooking who you want to get in your lineups this week or your bets on this week. So again, Sanderson Farms, we're at the Country Club of Jackson, I want to say, in Mississippi. This is going to be a really weak field. Getting right into the DraftKings lineups, we have Keith Mitchell, who is 10,400, Seamus Power at 10,200, Mackenzie Hughes at 10,000. So Mackenzie Hughes played a lot of golf last week at the President's Cup and looked really kind of meh. He won my bet, so like that's great. But like there was no point of me at any time during the week where I was like, yeah, Mackenzie Hughes is crushing it. Sweet. I was kind of like, he's playing golf and Minwoo isn't, so I guess I'll take it. Again, it's not, very thrilling. He also lost in all of his statistical categories outside of around the green play. So keep that in mind. So I don't love Mackenzie Hughes this week at 10,000. I'll go to Seamus Power at 10-2. He actually played 2 weeks ago at the Irish Open. So you might look at his numbers here and think, wow, Seamus Power hasn't played in months. He played 2 weeks ago. He finished T26 at the Irish Open. He gained in all statistical categories outside of strokes gained off the tee, which again, he just lost on accuracy there. So that's very okay if you just want to stick with that. He's also gained strokes putting in 9 of his last 10 starts, which is something, again, you'd really like to see at an event like this, where again, putting is going to be a huge factor. So I think instead of going to Mackenzie Hughes, go to Seamus Power. He's a really good option in that choice. Then you have Keith Mitchell. Keith Mitchell is the danger play, in my opinion, in this range. His putting is atrocious. He's lost putting in 8 of his last 10 starts. He's also never made a cut here at Sanderson. The other issue being is that this is one of the most expensive prices we've ever seen Keith Mitchell at. Generally, Keith Mitchell does not do good when he's one of the highest priced options in a field. More likely than not, he's missed the cut, which is really terrifying to think about. But whenever he's top 3 in the field, I think I looked up the stat. He's missed a cut at like a 39% clip, which is kind of crazy, all things considered. Because like when he's like a top 3 or 4 person in DFS, he misses the cut at almost a 40% clip. Seems very, I don't know. I'm avoiding him this week. Again, I think could the distance save him? Yes, but I think the putting could also hinder him just as much. So keep that in mind. If you want my list here, give me Seamus at 1, Mackenzie at 2, Mitchell at 3. Into the 9K range we go. We have JJ Spawn at 9,900, all the way down to Steven Jagerbombs at 9,000. There's a few guys I like in this range. JJ Spawn has quietly been playing some really good golf recently. He has 5 straight top 30 finishes. 3 of them are top 10s. He's also gained with the putter in 6 of his last 7 starts. I think he's a very viable option in this field. Is he more expensive than you probably want to be? Yes, but like JJ Spawn is a kind of boring golfer that can very easily finish like T15 this week and just like coast his way in the entire way. So unfortunately, I know it's not exciting, but he's a good one to have in your lineup. I will also mention Patrick Fishburn at 9,400. He's also been playing some very good golf. He has 4 top 15 finishes in his last 5 starts. He's also gained with the putter in all 4 of those weeks as well. He's actually from Utah, so he hits the ball like a country mile and a half. Keep in mind, honestly, for Patrick Fishburne's name next week when they go to the new event, which I'm already spacing on. It's like the Black Desert Classic or one of those. It's the one in Utah. It's next week. I'll let you know. But I think Fishburne will have a bit of a hometown advantage at that course. And I think he could be a very fun play there. I think Finau could be too if he plays it, but I don't know if Finau will. So no, Fishburne, I don't hate him this week. I think he's a really good option next week. The other guy I'll mention, Eric Cole at 9,200. He's playing much better golf than he did during the summer of last season. He's also gained with the putter in 9 of his last 11 starts. His biggest issue is that he kind of sucks when it comes to distance. But again, that doesn't really mean a whole hell of a lot here. It's nice, but if his irons and his putter are as good as Eric Cole's are, he's not going to see much of an effect in terms of loss on that. He did miss the cut at the Pro Tour, but that was when everybody was anticipating everything from, I think, with the miscut there and then the week off of the President's Cup, he will be very undervalued this range. I think Eric Cole, very valid option if you want to get to it. Nick Dunlap's another interesting play. And I don't have a ton of data on him, but this is the first time since he won at the Farmers. Yeah, no, Amex. He won the Amex. That he's really had time off. This guy played more golf last season than I felt like anybody else in a shorter amount of time. He had like that tough sequence in the middle. He came back. I think he won Barracuda towards the end of the season, but he's had like 3 weeks off, which I understand he's like 22, 23 years old. The guy still needs it. He is a young guy who needed to take a breather and figure out, his game a little bit more. So I think Nick Dunlap, first week back, will kind of come out firing a little bit. I think he's a valid option if you want to switch it up and not go with any of the others. I think Steven Yeager is a very scary option, very similar to Keith Mitchell. I won't dig any further into that than that. Just know that his putter sucks. So keep that in mind. Into the 8K range we go. We've got Chan Kim at 8,900 all the way down to Rico Hoey. Well, I think he's Richard Hoey now. I don't know. He's changed his name. No, he's still Rico in DraftKings. So I'm going to call him Rico Hoey. But yeah, 8K range. I like probably like two-ish guys in this range. This bottom of this entire tournament, by the way, gets brutal quickly. I mean, you will want to top load your lineups because once you get below probably, well, I'll mention them right now. I mean, Matt McCarty is 8,800. He has 3 wins in his last 12 starts on the Korn Ferry Tour, and he now has a PGA Tour card temporarily. That's the rule when you win three Korn Ferry Tour events in a season, you get promoted into the PGA Tour. So I think Matt McCarty is going to play a decent amount this season on the PGA Tour. But he's on a heater. He's been gaining like 10, 12 strokes tee to green in each of those weeks. I mean, he is statistically one of the best players in the last 36 rounds he's played. But again, that's Korn Ferry Tour stats versus a lot of these guys that are playing PGA Tour events, like the Wyndham or the BMW or any of those. So kind of skewed. But again, statistically, best 36. But even with him having his first event ever on the PGA Tour, he's $8,800 in this field. Is it a little expensive? Yes. Do I think he's actually going to be a good option this week? Yeah, because this is a pretty boring course, and I think he'll be able to, miss fairways and not run into too much problems. So I think Matt McCarty is a very good option. If you see him on FanDuel, he's the stone minimum price at 7,000. That is a flippin' steal. You put him in your FanDuel lineup at 7,000. Put Matt McCarty in your FanDuel lineup. That is all I have to say. I will also talk about Chan Kim. He's an extremely good golfer in this field, and I think that will probably carry him to make the cut. But his putter can definitely tank him this week. He's not that good of a putter comparatively to the rest of the field. And I think it will keep him out of the top 10. He's only gained strokes putting in probably half of his last 8 starts. So he's just really not that exciting. So keep that in mind. Matt Kuchar's 8,500. He's been playing really well. Matt Kuchar hasn't played the Sanderson Farm since 2007. During that time, he had missed 6 straight cuts for the Sanderson Farms. Now, again, I don't even think it was played at the Country Club of Jackson back when he was missing those cuts. But for whatever reason, Sanderson kind of has a shadow and a cape over Matt Kuchar for whatever purpose. And generally, Matt Kuchar always scares me because when you want to rely on Matt Kuchar, he will fall apart on you 100%. So last guy I'll mention is 8,000, Mac Neisner. He's got great approach play and his game with the putter in 4 of his last 6 starts. I think he's just a very viable option in the 8K range, all things considered. Again, it's pretty weak area to try and find good names for. And I think Mac Meisner at 8,000 is one of the few good options. Is good at approach play and putting, which is what I really want to look for. Cool. Into the 7K range we go. Again, another group with not a lot of guys I like. Doug Gim at 7,900 all the way down to, oh wow. Wow, there's a lot of guys at 7K. Is this KH Lee? Yes, it is KH Lee. KH Lee at the bottom of the 7K range. I will first talk about Justin Lauer. I think he's one of the better putters in this range in the field. He doesn't hit the ball very far, but he did finish T7 at Procore. And he actually finished T45 here last year. But again, he is, I think, like the top five putter in this range. I had to search by putters. I was selling the weeds on here. I was like, who's a good putter in this range? Correct answer, nobody. But Justin Lauer is one of the better ones in this range for sure. If you want another good putter, then you can look at Ben Coles at 7,200. He's got a good putter. I think he's like fifth or sixth in this range. He's actually really good on approach. He does not have a lot of distance off the tee, but he's got great accuracy, which ideally you'd like that to be swapped. But I don't think good accuracy is going to be a hindrance this week. I think what will just be more so instead of him hitting 50-yard chip shots in the greens, he's going to be hitting 100-yard chip shots in the greens. I'm not really too worried about it. I think he is one of the better 7K options in this range, especially with a good putter and pretty good approach play in this low 7,000s. Beyond him, I mean, it's a lot of big looking names, but like, do you want to trust Gary Woodland this week? I don't. Joel Damon, he's been all across the board. I think Michael Thor Bjornsson could be interesting, especially because he finished T50 at the Procore, but he shot 78 on that Sunday. His putter's a little sporadic and all across the board. I don't love the idea of going back to Thor Bjornsson, but if you want to get fancy, it's not an awful option. I will mention Matty Schmid. He's not exciting, but the guy I think has made about 8 straight cuts. I might be sitting. No, I think it's 8, it's 7 or 8. You guys get the point. And again, not very exciting, but if you want somebody that's probably making a cut, I like him over a lot of the other guys in this range as well. Cool. Into the 6K range we go. We're starting with Alex Smalley down to, I don't know who you are, Reed Hughes. Never played a PGA Tour event before. That's beautiful. Yeah, this is a brutal range. If at all possible, do not get stuck going into this range. Because there's really nobody I want here. I will mention Hayden Buckley. He has played well here in the past. He's had, I think, 2 top 15 finishes in his last 2 starts. But if you look at his recent finishes, he has missed each of his last 3 cuts. Now, if you can go back to what he was doing prior to that, where he had, 2 top 10s in his last 6, also missed 1 cut in a sequence of, I think, 8 finishes, then Hayden Buckley could be a valid option. But he's definitely one of the riskiest options. But I think at 6,400, he's not the worst guy in the world to play. I will also talk about, where's my boy? I'm going to talk about Taylor Montgomery. He's got really good distance, all things considered. He has these kind of pop off high week performances. And I think that he could very well be a viable option when it comes to distance. His biggest concern is accuracy off the tee. That gets mitigated here. He also has a tendency to sometimes make bogeys and doubles, which is terrifying. But I think all things considered, he is a viable option in this range. Last guy I will mention is Zach Johnson. Zach Johnson has been playing pretty well. He's made 4 of his last 5 cuts with, 30s, 40s, and 50s, basically. So nothing too fancy, but he's good at approach play. He's a solid enough putter. Doesn't have a ton of distance. Again, doesn't need that here. So I think he is a valid option if you want to get to him. So, maybe Joe Highsmith too. He hits the ball a country mile. He could be a very fun and interesting play if you want to go with a bucket hat route of Joe Highsmith. I know his putter is a little more meh, but he has the distance to definitely crush it, and he's I think a little more consistent than Montgomery at 6,700. So keep that in mind. With that, I am getting into my lineups. For my DraftKings lineup, I am starting off with JJ Spawn at 9,900. Then I'm going to Patrick Fishburne, 9,400. Eric Cole, 9,200. Ryan Fox, who I didn't really talk about, but he statistically rates out very well. Putter's a bit of a concern, but everything else is great at 7,600. Ben Coles at 7,200. And then Joe Highsmith at 6,700. For my FanDuel lineup, I have Seamus Power at 11,100, Eric Cole at 10,700, JJ Spawn at 10,600, Patrick Fishburne at 10,500, Mac Neesner at 9,900, and Matt McCarty at 7,000. For my bets, I have 4 bets this week. I have Matthijs Schmidt over Steven Yeager at plus 120. I have Ryan Fox over Aaron Baddeley and Tom Wilkinson at minus 130. I have Nick Dunlap over Steven Yeager at minus 115. And I have Eric Cole over Ben Griffin at plus 100. For my winners, I'm going to take Eric Cole and Ryan Fox because, again, I think both of them have the ability to succeed on this type of a course. And for my wild card, I'm going to take Keith Mitchell to miss the cut at plus 275. Is it a bit of a rough guesstimate in terms of how we want to make that work? Sure. But again, this is less of a numbers play and more of this guy misses a lot of cuts when he's the top ranked golfer and when people rely on him and when it's a putter heavy week, which all 3 of those apply this week. So it's just kind of less of a numbers play, more of a logistical play. That's really all I can say to it. So with that, I'm determined to get Jack on the podcast next week. So you're going to be stuck with him again this next upcoming week. Sorry he wasn't on this week. All of a sudden yesterday, he messaged me. He's like, by the way, I'm traveling. And I'm like, tell your bosses to suck it up and stop making you travel so you can hop on the podcast. But he'll be on next week, so that'll be good. We will be going to the Black Desert Classic in Utah, which will be an interesting time. This is the first time it'll be held at that course. Not a lot of data. It's going to be a lot more picking guys in good form. That's really all it'll be. But this is probably not the week I would recommend betting all of the money you have on golf. Throw a couple bucks on the NFL, throw a couple bucks on, I know baseball's in playoffs, or I guess going into the playoffs starting today / tomorrow / a few days ago, depending on when you watch this episode. But bet playoffs, bet football, bet something else, because the Sanderson is probably not worth your money at the end of the day. Save it for a couple weeks from now. So with that, I will leave you to it. We will see you next week. Doses.